you guys remember those Mentos commercials from the 90s? Those were so good. There's one where like a guy's in a suit and he sits down on a park bench and he looks at his suit and realizes he's got paint all over himself, and then it cuts to like a guy painting the next park bench like 20 feet away, and he just like looks at the guy and just shrugs, and then the guy has like he's got that idea and he like pops a Mentos, and then he lays down on the park bench and like rolls on the park bench and gets these like gigantic pinstripes for his suit. It looks awful, but then he like gives a thumbs up to the painter. That was a funny one. And then there was one where this lady's like in a Fiat, or I think it's like a Fiat or a Mini, and she parks, and then some car comes up behind her and parks her in, so there's like absolutely no space to get out, and the person that parks her in is just kind of like running away and just shrugs like, gotta go, no time to like be a decent human and move my car 6 inches for you. And she sees these guys like working out on the beach, like Muscle Beach or something, and she like pops the Mentos and she gets these 4 guys to like pick up her car and lift it and move it. It was a good time. I was singing the theme song somehow got stuck in my head the other day, and my wife's like, how do you remember, like, what are you singing? And I was like, oh, it's the Mentos commercial theme. She's like, how do you remember that?
They can hear us. Mentos quick.
Yeah,
this is. See how long you were going to talk about Mentos.
Hey, did you guys? Entertainment. This is entertainment.
Do me a favor. Hang on one second. Send out the link. And are you seeing us on YouTube and on Facebook, guys?
So I see us live right now on Retro.
Okay, and
it was posted by Restream.
Yeah, I was seeing it on Facebook or on YouTube, and I got a black screen on there.
It's on YouTube.
It is.
Double check, but
I see it on Facebook, but I only see you.
Yeah, that's all you should be seeing.
I'm just trying to provide entertainment.
That's how it works.
Tune in early. That's why I'm regaling with the Mentos. So one of my students floated this idea a few years ago and said he was like really into 90s culture, and he goes, I want to do a Mentos parody commercial for my first project. And I said, all right, I'm listening. And he goes, I want to do the same theme where like Mentos, like popping a Mentos is what gives people inspiration to like find the solution to their problems. But I want the problems to be like really awful and morbid rather than like, the simple problems of the 90s commercials. And man, it was nuts listening to some of the ideas that he had, where like popping the Mentos would be the theme.
All right, guys, if you're just joining us, welcome. Please say something in the comments so we know you're there. Make sure we're sounding loud and clear and that you got a picture. Appreciate if you put something in the comments for us, please. It's weird, man. My YouTube's got a black screen. It shows and then it disappears. Are you guys seeing us on YouTube?
Yeah, it looks good on mine.
Okay.
Yeah, I see 57, 56, 55.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I see 57, 56, 55.
Okay.
Somebody's phone is exploding.
That was just the music. That's just the intro music.
I know.
You can do that?
All right. We are just moments away from starting. going on. So I'd like to bring in our co-host right now. Brad, what's going on, my friend?
Not much. Good to see you over there, Scott. I'm just glad TV's actually got some hockey on it finally, and I got something to do in my house, even though I'm still kind of stuck in it.
Absolutely. NHL is back, everybody, and so was hockey, and it's going away again. And we've got our special guest today, Mason, joining us. Mason was on with us last week. We were going to talk about taking the tests, and I know he's got some tips and tricks for us that he's going to share today. So we definitely want to get to that, but there's a lot of breaking news in the hockey world here in Chicago, and it starts with the fact that we are shutting down on August 15th. So we've had teams in from out of state. They are continuing to play. No issues for them. But Illinois is shutting down, and we want to talk about that today because it affects all of us, and there's a lot of information out there that we want to share. In addition to that, Brad, I want to come right to you right now because, guys, we've been talking about getting ready for hockey season and getting our tests done and getting registered and all that good stuff. In the past, we have not had the information available with regard to IHOA seminars. We now have that information. We are going to share that with you because we have some seminar dates. So tell us what we're going to do, Brad, and what our procedure is.
All right. So the first thing you have to do is always go register with USA Hockey, just like you would every year, standard. The next part is you actually have to register online for your seminar through USA Hockey. There'll be a $0 cost for that through IHOA, or not through IHOA, excuse me, through USA Hockey. And then you have to go on to IHOA.com and pay your season's dues just like you would every other year. That offsets costs of what the seminars are to run Zoom meetings this year, and then the ICE costs that'll be associated for level 1. So levels 2, 3s, and 4s will be virtual this season. We're going to try and keep them action-packed and as fun as possible. So we've never done this before, but I think with the right people, I think it's going to be okay. And we're going to try and get you as much knowledge as we can in a short period of time. Most of them will be on weeknights for the 2s, 3s, and 4s. So I would be ready for that this season. I don't think we have very many options at all on the weekends. And then the level 1s will be split into a couple of sections. And then that weekend, there'll be an on-ice seminar scheduled slot at a couple of various rinks around the state. So I think basically what you have to do is look at when you're available to get to the on-ice, and that's where you take that seminar. These seminars, there's fewer of them, but there'll be more people involved.
Now, are those dates all in stone yet in terms of ice schedule for level 1s? Where are they going to be doing that?
The dates are all down currently right now on USA Hockey and on IHOA.
Okay, great. All right, we want to welcome Mason to the show. Mason, welcome back again. Glad to have you.
Hey,
bring us up to speed with some of the stuff that you're in the know on.
Well, nothing happened this week. No, but
yeah, right.
I think we were actually doing this show last week when the governor made the announcement about August 15th and hockey being classified as a level 4.
Level 3.
The highest,
yes, level 3.
The highest risk category that they have, along with ultimate frisbee and some other real intense sports. Yeah. So, as of August 15th, the restrictions get clamped down again to practice only, no competition, and no contact at practice. So it's back to pretty much just basic skills and things like that. The only thing that didn't get further restricted was the amount of participants, like we were back in the beginning of June when we were, when it was like no more than 10 people on the ice together. You can still have larger numbers than that. I believe the maximum depends on the rink, but it's typically around 30. So you can have a team on the ice together, but they won't be able to play games, and they won't be able to have any contact with one another. So on the body checking divisions, and even the body contact divisions, I think the recommendation is to do things where you're not, having contact with each other, which is kind of difficult with the game of hockey.
Yeah, I just don't understand this. I mean, I was walking around in my neighborhood, and I put a post up on Facebook if you guys get a chance and you want to check it out. I took a picture of some guys just at a playground playing ball just the other day, shirts off, hands on the body, touching the ball, up against each other. I'm like, really? Like, in all the games I've worked so far this season, which has been a number, I haven't seen even a scrum where we've had to pull people off of anybody. Everybody's been pretty smart. They've been playing hard, but, we haven't had any issues. I don't see anybody up there that's not covered, not fully protected. And I haven't heard of any issues from any of the games that have taken place. We've had teams from out of state. We've had teams from the hot zones, California, Arizona, maybe not Arizona. We have had California, Colorado. We've had Minnesota. We've had Wisconsin. We've had, lots of places where there's issues. And I haven't heard of anything. I thought the rinks have done a great job here. So for this to be happening, I'm really surprised. I know there was a conversation that I kind of overheard and then got involved in, some guys that were playing men's league that play down at, Fifth Third in Chicago. And, I heard that I don't know how true this is, but apparently they spent a lot of money down there to do a lot of things to the rink to clean it up. Not that it needs clean. I mean, they take great care of that place. Of facilities around the country, I've never seen a rink that's cared for like that place is. I mean, it's meticulous. But I understand that they spent more money putting in like the temperature readers and all the things that they were supposed to do based on what the city and the state had asked them to do in order to try to make Chicago a hub city for the NHL. And so they've spent a lot of money. They've done everything right. And now they're being shut down. Then I heard, no, they didn't want to do that. And now I just saw the email yesterday that our games that we have there are canceled. So apparently they're shutting down even sooner because the men's league is not going to start up. But, we've got AAA hockey.
Is this prior to August 15th?
Yes. Yeah. So
was this the start of a new session or
it
new
is.
season?
It is. Yeah. So I had a game scheduled for like August 12th there that got canceled. So the email came out and said they're canceling earlier. All my other leagues are playing up until through the 14th. I just had 15 games canceled yesterday. I got 15 cancellation notices for games. So it really hurts. I mean, we all want to be skating, getting back in shape. I mean, we sat for 4 months. I don't know about you guys, but that's a pant size for me. That's how I go by it. It's about a quarter of a pant size per month. So that's a full pant size, 2 inches. And, now you're starting to get some of that off. You're getting back in shape, loving it. We're working, and now we're going to get shut down. And yet the other states, I mean, we had people in town this past weekend. None of those states are shutting down, and they're in supposedly not as good a shape as Illinois is. So where are we going with this? I mean, are we going to have a hockey season at this rate, or how long are we going to be shut down? Brad, what do you think?
Well, I don't know how long we're going to be shut down, but I have a suggestion to the officiating community and the hockey community in general is, we do have a voice, and it's through your congressman, and that's through the Illinois State Congress. All right. So you can also write your U.S. congressman if you want. But you should write those outlets, possibly your senator or two that represents your district, and let them know how you feel about it and plead your case. Every letter that goes into them, they count normally as 10. That's normally how it's perceived. One actual handwritten letter, somebody that took the time, 10 people are actually thinking it. So I think that's a very good way to start with it. You might not get the answer you want, but if anybody's ever seen a movie, Shawshank Redemption, he started writing a letter a week, and then when he got what he wanted, he started writing 2 a week.
Yep.
So I just think that's a good suggestion. It's a great way to make your thoughts counted. You don't have to sign it. You can make it unanimous or unanimous.
Anonymous.
Thank you.
Unanimous? It's pronounced unanimous.
Unanimous, anonymous.
Anyways, but you can do that, and I think it's a great outlet, and it's a great way to even start a relationship possibly with somebody that you may never have a relationship with, because you never know. If you put your phone number down, they might call you because they represent us, and we do have some pull with that. I think our sport should be a lower classification. I don't feel players being basically covered from head to toe should be not able to participate in games or even scrimmages, correct, Mason? That's how classification works.
Yeah, you're not supposed to have any type of competition. So even if you were trying to set up a scrimmage, it's doubtful that you would be able to get referees to you wouldn't. They would just probably shut down the attempt to set up a game right away because we're told that there's no competition.
Okay.
So anything outside of the team. And that's a good point about your congressperson. People that I know that were on unemployment when all of this started, and the unemployment office was just slammed, and there was no way to get through. A couple of them started contacting their local state representative and just calling them like every week for a while, and then it turned into every day. And then the congressperson, actually, someone from their office, started making phone calls to people and finding ways to get their unemployment certified. So calling them for sure definitely is going to help. Hockey's a tricky beast. I've been looking into this quite a bit to figure out why the classification is where it's at, especially because if you think about the contact in ice hockey, you can make the argument about the equipment, and how you're wearing a lot more equipment than other sports where there's body contact, like basketball. And you could make an argument about the square footage of the ice arena, whereas other sports you're playing on a much smaller, closer quarters.
Yep.
And hockey's tricky, and a lot of the, and I don't know if I haven't made up my mind on how I feel about this yet, but a lot of it is stemming from the environment of hockey and the travel nature and the larger pool that it pulls from. So you may have, let's take the Chicago Mission, for example. They may have players from all over Chicagoland rather than just one specified area, whereas like a T-ball team, it's going to be 13 or 10 or 13 kids that are all, live within 6 blocks of each other. So right. I know that there's some thought that's been given to that, which is because a lot of people are demanding answers like, why is our sport classified here? And hockey, just because of the travel-like nature of it and how people tend to be a lot more spread out, I think is part of it. And it's a tough to kind of make peace with and really accept, I guess.
I'm going to take that. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say this is all politics. I'm not a political person, but I'm becoming one very rapidly, and I just think it's a political decision. I think that, if basketball is a level 1 and hockey is a level 3, I think that's politics. I'm sorry. I think it's politics.
What's the motivation to shut down hockey and not shut down basketball, though?
I don't think you can shut down basketball because that's his voter base. That's my personal opinion. I think that's a voter base, and I feel that is a political decision, that if he shut down basketball, he'd get a lot more flack for it. And I think he's going to be surprised that he's going to get a lot of flack for the hockey, because there's a lot of money in hockey, and there's a lot of rich people that have a lot of kids that are trying to go play D1, and they're trying to make it to the pros. And this is going to affect all these players. If these guys aren't able to play and compete, I mean, we've already seen there's other sports, basketball players for high school not playing, so they're moving to other states. They're moving to hotspots. They're moving to Texas. They're moving to Florida. Football players doing the same thing. Yeah, so I just feel there's a political motivation behind this. That's why hockey, either that or it's a lack of education, on the sport and just not knowing enough about it and what's involved. But that's my personal opinion. And, that's what we do here. We do personal opinions. We are not sponsored. We're not endorsed by anybody. So I'm just giving you my thoughts on it. And that's kind of how I feel. And, I'm disappointed that we're shut down. I'm disappointed for all sports that are shut down. Whether it's hockey, whether it's baseball, football, these sports matter to these kids. It's a big part of their life. It's a big part of them growing up and learning how to be a better person, how to work as a team, how to, if you go on the road, taking care of your own money, being responsible for yourself, getting up at a scheduled time, working with a group of people, making it to the practice, airing your equipment out, basic skills of life. There's a lot of that that's involved with the sport. And sport goes way beyond just like, it's a game and having fun. But, you look at guys that have, we'll use hockey as an example. I don't care if you use basketball, whatever. When these guys are traveling with these teams and they learn responsibility, it's life skills that are going to get them a better job when they get out of school. And, these are basic skills and things that everybody should know and be a part of. And if you haven't played sports, all of us have, obviously, but there's people out there that haven't played sports, that haven't experienced these things, and how important they are in your lifetime. And you're going to look back, when you get to be my age, and you look back and say, wow, I was so lucky to have played hockey and traveled, or I played tennis and I got to go out of state and do all these cool things. That's like some of the best things that have happened in your lifetime that you're going to remember. So I feel bad that, these kids are not going to experience that, or they're going to have an issue. And now, what's to stop some of these teams from going out of state? You got Central States that plays in other areas. So maybe you guys know a little bit more. Can they take all their games out of state and play all the out of state games right now? Or what's to stop a team like a Mission that's got money when they didn't have Fifth Third? They turned around and rented a building in Tinley Park and put refrigeration in. I wonder if they're considering going over the border and doing this. Plus, we've got kids that are playing AAA that come out of Illinois. They go up and play for like the Madison Capitals, and yet they live in the Illinois area. And they may not live in the city of Chicago, but they certainly live in Illinois, and they make the commute for all the practices, all the games. So, where does the borderline stop, or, make this feasible?
I think that's an interesting transition into I think it was encouraging to see USA Hockey's declaration that there's going to be a season that
absolutely.
we're going to play. And then, reading further into it, it says, you still are subject to, the rules of your local affiliates and your local governing bodies. So obviously we're in this situation, but yeah, I think a lot of different clubs right now are searching for solutions or workarounds, especially we've got, Indiana's really close for half the clubs, and Wisconsin's really close for half the clubs. So yeah, I don't think it's out of the question to conceive that teams maybe, going up to Pleasant Prairie or Kenosha to play games, along the northern border, and they might be trying to go to Midwest or somewhere. I don't know if Indiana's rinks as well in the northwest.
Well, I think they've got St. John or something. That might be a little bit further away, but there is the one that I know. I think it's a double rink or something that's pretty nice. That's close by. I know a lot of the guys that work south suburbs end up going there and doing high school. So I know there's some high school teams playing out of that area. It's definitely going to be interesting. And then you've got the Chicago, the 14-day quarantine. So if you come into Chicago, if you've been to Wisconsin, it's not that way in Indiana yet, I don't believe. But if you've been to Wisconsin, you got to sit for 14 days. And that's even if you drive through there and stop and get gas. So if you drive through, you're fine. But yet they said the parents can turn around and take their kids to college there. They don't have to quarantine. Essential worker doesn't have to quarantine. So these rules just, I'm sorry, they're crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, the complexity of this is really frustrating to navigate, because again, these workarounds and things, and in the long run, the pessimistic viewpoint, especially if states are still operating around Chicago, it's probably just going to prolong this. To be honest, if you're gonna shut down for 2 weeks and everybody shuts down for 2 weeks minus the essentials, and you seriously limit spread or transmission of any kind, then it's probably things are probably going to get better much more quickly. But obviously that's not happened because they're probably people aren't following guidelines and whatnot on the whole, which is just I sat in on a community address about are we going to open schools, not open schools, and there was the community I was sitting in on is really in favor of opening schools, and the decision was we're going to open our schools. And then, with the most recent data, the average infection rate was well over 5%, which is kind of the threshold that the CDC has in this particular community. And then the superintendent said, well, we're going to open schools as soon as we can. We just can't right away because it's not a safe environment. And at the same time, he was kind of addressing the community and pleading for their help and cooperation. He's like, I live in the community and I go out and about and I see nobody wearing masks, nobody social distancing. And, that's the stuff, those are the little things that's going to prolong all of this, to be honest. Whether decisions are made from, a scientific standpoint, a health and safety standpoint or a political standpoint, the longer that this is like around and nagging and seen as a problem, it's just gonna compound and prolong these issues. And more, I'm sure that hockey's not going to be the only thing affected. More and more decisions are going to be made that affect other areas, and it's going to schools is a big topic too.
Yeah, for sure.
When I know high school hockey right now, the big question is like, well, are we going to play? If your school is open, but your school is not open, is your team still eligible to compete? Because, hockey's, for the predominantly clubs in Illinois, right. With loose to no affiliation from your school. But, what type of precedent or what type of guideline are they going to follow in terms of deeming a team, eligible for the season?
Yeah. Well, okay, for you that are just joining us, a couple things. First of all, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification button. We'd appreciate it. We need to get to 100 so that we can get a custom URL. And I want to ask Brad a question. So this year we have a new screening process for USA Hockey. So in the past, we got screened in Illinois. We paid a one-time fee. It was supposed to be good forever, I guess. And now it's been changed. The mandated change is that every 2 years we have to be screened. We pay an additional fee for this. But now this is a consistent screening process for USA Hockey. So it's the same thing across the country. So I'd like to know if we are shut down from hockey here in Illinois, now that we have the new screening from USA Hockey, does that open up the borders to all the referees? Can all the referees now decide that they can go to Indiana, they can go to Wisconsin, they can go to Minnesota, they can go to Michigan and start working games, because now they don't have to pay for an additional screening in that local market to work all those areas? So can you tell me how that's going to work and how that affects the potential for Illinois officials to go work in other markets?
Well, the first thing is I would just want to point out, USA Hockey had to set this mandate for everybody in the country, and that came down from actual United States Congress. And it's the upper affiliate of all affiliates, the super affiliate, the organizer, which is USA Hockey. Right. They sanction all the affiliates below them. They have to use one testing for everyone that's involved in the sport in order to keep it consistent so that they're constantly notified. So just want to point that out, that this is coming from U.S. Congress, not just from our sport. This is all sports across the country.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I think it's fine. It should be consistent across the board. But now that it is consistent, and it's the same whether you're in New York or California or Illinois or whatever the case may be, does that open up the borders to all the officials? Can they start traveling now for all the tournaments? I mean, and getting games in other markets without having to get rescreened now?
Well, Scott, you've always had the ability to travel and go to other markets. That's not an issue. As small as hockey community is, it gets even smaller on your local level. So let's say they're having a tournament in Las Vegas, and they have 100 referees, and they have, 40 games, 50 games. The local referees are going to get that look at first before we are. There's also a couple other registration standpoints that stand with officiating. If you're going to go officiate outside your district, you have to get the registrar involved of your district and the other district, because our information isn't sent to USA Hockey in general. The screening is across the board, but it always goes back to your district and your affiliate. And if you imagine taking all that information and sending it to every state, approximately 99% of the information you would be getting would just be information you'd never use. So they attempt to keep that on a much more local basis. Plus, then it keeps our registrars from having to sift through information page after page after page.
Right.
And, there's a lot of people, I'm just going to say, named John Smith. Could you imagine how many players named John Smith there are that play ice hockey in a database? So like if you can make that transition a little bit smaller, I think that's why the data is sent out the way it is. And like I said, going outside your comfort zone, let's call it that way, your local, it can be difficult. You would have to probably know somebody in order to get in, unless you're going to move there for a temporary time, say go to college or be up there for work for a couple years or something like that. I don't know if that benefits the local area to have us come in. I'm lucky. I'm dual membership here in Illinois and in Missouri, and I have a lot of friends down in Missouri, and they're very welcoming and they're great people, and they share great ideas with us. Wisconsin, they're great. I'm not a member up there, but I'm sure if I wanted to join and be a part of the brotherhood and actively give back, I don't think they're going to have an issue with that along the way. I think the issue is we have normally officiating communities in the areas that are well equipped at most times to handle the games that are being assigned at that time and scheduled by the clubs. So like a rare difference is Chicago, when we have the CCM tournament now, or I think it's the Jofer, it's changed names over the years.
The World Invite.
The World Invite, thank you. It has so many teams coming in from so many areas, and they're using so many rinks. It's very difficult for Chicago's officiating staff to handle it by itself. So a lot of officials do come in as an exception at that point, and I know there's a lot of coordination for that to get done, and I don't want to be the person to coordinate that ever in my life. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah,
they do a great job.
It's a tough situation that they get themselves put into, and they love it, and they get it done, and it's just amazing how we get all those games taken care of. And, it just runs smoothly. It's very cool. It's a cool process.
So in closing with it, though, I don't think anybody's going to stop you. I think, remember, though, they're still going to have their own guys and their top, and nobody knows you going into a different market. Sure.
Well, for a lot of us, I'm in the city, but if you're in a northern suburb, if you're up near like Vernon Hills, you're working out at Glacier or whatever, it's probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes to go over the border to Pleasant Prairie. And a number of times I've actually worked out of Pleasant Prairie with no issue. I guess those games have been scheduled, however they get it done. But there is a rink there in Kenosha, and I've never been to the Kenosha rink. I don't know if those games were ever available through our organization, which is IHOA, for scheduling or whatever. But I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I know there's refs that go up to Milwaukee. They work some of the college games and things of that nature. There's rinks up in that area. So for the people that are close to the border, and same thing with the Indiana, if they can, I'm just looking for a way for them to find some work during this time so that they can be skating and working, because we do have some officials that pretty much only do hockey, and, that's pretty much their livelihood. So, again, these people are getting shut down and put out of work, and I don't know how long it's going to be. So I'm hoping that maybe this is just a month. Somebody told me that hockey is just going to be backed up like a month, and that the seasons will start later. Somebody mentioned that Nihil normally starts in October. They're going to start in November, and they'll still play the full season. So I don't know, maybe better than I do on this, you guys. So, love to hear about that.
Unfortunately, I have really no knowledge of the local leagues right now. I haven't asked, and I honestly haven't read too much. I know my kids' organization has a meeting tonight to explain what's going to happen forthgoing here over the next couple weeks. And right now, I'm just taking it week by week, because a lot can change in a week. And, a week ago, we were just finding out about this, and now we're a week in, and, who knows, maybe all of a sudden the numbers plummet, and then in 10 days they say, hey, all right, never mind. So I just think it's so fluid that it's tough to make an assessment. Mason, maybe you have some better information than I do. I mean, I honestly don't. So,
well, I mean, in terms of what's going on, once this announcement was made, I know that the various leagues are have either had meetings or are having meetings, just to talk about options for the year. But it's not. Again, the situation is so fluid. No, there are, given that we're at the beginning of August, no plan is going to be concrete right now. But yeah, a lot of teams a lot of leagues are saying, all right, well, if we're pushed back to this date, we'll trim the season. Instead of everybody playing everyone 3 times, everyone will play each other twice or once, or maybe we'll trim the tiering round for Nihil. I mean, who knows? But I know, like, a lot of leagues, they're just coming up with alternatives on what to do in the case of a shortened season. I know for high school, a lot of it is it's not dependent, but a lot of it is, okay, when can the state championships be played? And then everything is kind of backlogged from there. Like sense. When can state be played, and then they'll backtrack. I know with college, with ACHA, a lot of them said, the most feasible, like the latest possible start date is January 1 to, like, conceivably get enough of a season in where they can determine, national rankings. And then I think they're in talks to push nationals back into late April. They're supposed to be in Massachusetts this year at one of the super rinks. And I think all 5 divisions are supposed to take place at the same time. So I know that rink has said that they're willing to push back as late April. So I think that's why January 1 got put down for when they can start. So yeah, in terms of local leagues, I think they're just figuring out, if we're pushed back a month, if we're pushed back 2 months, if we're pushed back to January, what's this going to look like? It was nice that AHI made that announcement for the high school division that they're not going to be tied to the IHSA dates, especially because IHSA has pushed everything back. I think we're going to be starting to play football in February now, as it's currently scheduled. Oh. So in terms of hockey, I mean, I would just say nothing's going to be concrete at the moment. I imagine, when Brad goes, to this meeting, they're probably going to say what their current plan is and then say that it's likely to change, because I think everything very much is likely to change. I mean, for my school district, we had a plan announced to us yesterday morning, and they said this is the plan right now, but it's likely to change, because it's just a very fluid situation.
Yeah, I mean, schools here that supposedly they're opening, but now they're talking that they're not going to be opening. I mean, it was reported on the national news on NBC that they weren't going to be opening the other day, and then it was corrected during the local broadcast that they made a correction on that, and now it looks like maybe they're not going to be opening. We don't know. So yeah, that's definitely all fluid movement at this point. And moving forward, I'd just like to see us get from being this level 3, to a level, even a level 2 or a level 1, whatever the case may be, because just like for a lot of the businesses that can't open because they need the level 5 to reopen, which means you need a vaccine. As the level 3, you're not going to be able to play hockey until there's a vaccine. So it really is important to get that level reduction in here so that we have some sort of opportunity. And I don't know in the statement if that was tied to, like, no sport until we have a vaccine or whatever the case may be. But I know the higher the level, the harder it's going to be to get back to any kind of normal and regular play. So that's kind of my my feeling on that.
I think whatever happens on the optimism side, that with e-learning, with sports pausing, I think whatever happens, it's a means to an end. Whatever thing, it will return to normal. This won't be like a lot of people use that concept of, or that term, like the new normal. And like, maybe it's the new normal for right now, or for the next, day, week, month, few months. But I fully believe that things are going to return to normal. Like, I don't see myself teaching in a classroom with a mask on the rest of my career. That's going to be crazy. So it will return to normal. It's just kind of the frustrating part in the meantime. Imagine if this, I was thinking the other day and talking with a buddy, like, what if this had hit us last September rather than March? If it had hit us last September and we're in the middle of winter, and they shut everything down, like, does this go away faster because people aren't wanting to go out and, go to barbecues and do things? Like, I feel like summer had a lot to do with it. Just personally, I feel like summer had a whole lot to do with it because everybody's used to like going to the lake house or going out to barbecues or just doing things that are social, especially because the days are longer and the weather's nicer. So
For sure.
I mean, the fact that this happened, I feel like it has a lot to do with these spikes that are going on.
But we shut down. We shut down in very early March. I mean, we were done after March 7th, I believe, from hockey. That was the last day I worked, was March 7th. And so, we had, spring is not great in March and April here in Chicago. I mean, we've had a really nice summer, obviously. And yeah, it's going to be tough to keep people locked down that long. I always thought, well, we'll get locked down and we'll be done by Memorial Day weekend. And it was we'll be done by July 4th weekend.
Yeah.
Now I was hoping we'd be done by Labor Day weekend. Now I'm thinking we're going to get locked down till Labor Day weekend. I don't know. I mean,
keeps going. Well, when they shut school down, even the administrators, they're like, yeah, well, it'll probably be a week or two, and then we expect to see everybody back, and then it just kept going and going and going, and that's the scary part of like the unknown here, because a lot of this is being decided on the fly, which is the frustrating part with the hockey side too, because you're sitting there going like, well, how are we classified as in the highest risk category, where obviously you probably have a lot of people that are having to make decisions that are not experts in these fields. And hockey is one of those collateral damage if you may be. But Brad, I wanted to go back to one thing about going to different states. Isn't there at least through USA Hockey, isn't there like a limit before you have to dual register? Isn't it like 8 or 10 games that you can work out of your home market?
That's all done by the affiliates. So like in Chicago, you can work, I think, 8 games. It's 8 or 10, and then you'd have to join our membership.
Okay.
So but some places I think you have to join right off the bat. I mean, so I don't know exactly how that works. I can find out an answer if people want to email me.
See, I didn't even know that. That's really interesting because, I know like Big Bear has a lot of tournaments and they offer people the opportunity to travel to another state and work games. And they're willing, if you're willing to work a number of games, they're willing to pay for whatever the screening process is for you. But now, I guess with the screening process being the same across the board, I guess that's where my question really came into play for everybody. So what you're saying is you'd still have to join the local organization. If they came in here and did it, they'd have to join IHOA after 8 games or whatever, meaning they get like an exemption for the big tournament.
I know I do know that the big tournament is exempt entirely from that total. Okay. But if you come in more often, I'm dual members here in Missouri, and I join Missouri every year, even if I don't go skate down there, just to keep my membership active so that their registrar doesn't have to chase me after I'm going to work some games or come down there for a weekend or whatever. And, hey, they're great about it, and they're real nice about it. They send you an email real quick, and they're like, hey, your dues aren't current. And it's like, okay, I understand. Like, I get that, and I'm fine with that. I don't know how it's done in every local, so I'm not speaking for the entire nation. But I do know our local has a set amount, and then you get an email that says, please go register with IHOA, and you go do it, or you're probably not going to come in and work any more games.
Right.
That's just how it works.
I think most of the locals have those like modest limits, at least in the Central District, because if you're going to work like district tournaments or national tournaments that are hosted, they don't make you re-register in that, affiliate, because like if like Green Bay or St. Louis are hosting tournaments, then it's usually scheduled through the local affiliate.
Right.
So I think they always try to. I think that's probably where that number 8 came from. If you work like 3 or 4 round robin games, and then you're probably only going to end up at 7 or 8. But yeah, if you're going over state lines every weekend, they're going to want your they're going to want your membership dues.
And I think we deserve to pay that membership due if you're going over there every weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue at all. I think it's just a way for guys maybe to be working. Really was what it comes down to. I mean, if there's no hockey here in Illinois, there's got to be some opportunities somewhere else possibly to be working. So that was kind of my whole point in raising that question and trying to figure out what that means for us as officials. So that's a great answer, and I appreciate that, because that's information I didn't even know, that you could only work a number of games before you had to join. And I don't think anybody would object to joining one of those if they're going to be working in those areas, for sure. Mason, so go ahead.
I was going to say, last thing on that topic, and these are USA hockey games, right? So like, if you were to go over if you were to go to like Wisconsin, don't expect to work high school games for USA Hockey, since they're federation, right? And then that's a completely different type of registration. That's a completely different, circle of people. I know that there's different people. I think Pops was one of them that would go and do that. And there are different officials, especially that live up on northern Illinois, that have done that in the past. But that's a completely different process.
Good to know.
So
different
keep
rule
that in
book,
mind
different,
as well. Different testing.
Yeah, big time.
So it's a different officiating system. USA Hockey only uses 2 officials, 3 officials, or 4 officials, and the setup of 2 referee line, then one referee, 2 linesmen, or 2 referees and 2 linesmen. The federation uses any combination, but the most common one is 2 referees and 1 linesman, which USA Hockey does not sanction.
Right. All right. Well, that's great information. So one of the things we brought Mason on here initially 2 weeks ago
for the testing,
was to talk about taking the tests and preparing for them. I thought we'd all share a few tips that we may have with regard to taking the open book test, taking the closed book test, taking the modules, whatever the case may be. And so Mason is come on to really talk about that sort of thing. Before we get into that, please remember, guys, to subscribe. If you're watching, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. We do this every Wednesday at noon Central Time. And with that, Mason, why don't you share some of your test-taking tips?
Sure, I'm happy to. So if you tuned in last week, just to review, I talked a little bit about just some of the basics. So like number 1 is your environment. You want to this year, with everything being online for your test taking, especially for the closed book portion being online, and timed. Am I correct, Brad, that it's going to be timed?
3 hours, 1 sitting, 3 hours. Don't log off. Whatever you do.
Okay.
So
any special browser? Every browser will work for this? Because a lot of people are on Mac, and a lot of times Safari is not, one of the supported browsers.
It's on the same setup as the open book test and your modules.
Yep.
So if you're able to do it, if you're able to do both of those, then you can do your closed book test. So just remember also that once you've completed your seminar and it's been turned in, we're waiting on an answer with that, but you have 7 days to complete it after your seminar. So that link goes live.
Can you not take your test until after your seminar?
You cannot take your closed book test until your seminar is completed.
Okay.
That you have registered for. And you have 7 days to complete it.
I just registered this morning. That's why I'm asking. I registered this morning, and I was already antsy to do my open book, and it was like, you have to wait 24 hours until you can access your open book. And then I couldn't, I think I just was doing it too fast and the system hadn't updated, but I was trying to register on USA Hockey for my seminar as well, and it was telling me that I wasn't registered this year. But it was like 30 seconds after I had completed my registration. So I'll try again after this. And everything should be hunky-dory there. But back to testing. I mean, the first thing I think is really important is an environment where you're not going to be distracted. If you've noticed that I keep looking this way, periodically, I do have the Panthers game trying to stave off elimination right here. And it's 1-1 after 2. Just for those of you needing an update, I'm sure if you're replaying this later tonight, you will know if the Panthers are still alive in the playoff race. But yeah, I mean, choosing an environment where you're not going to be easily distracted. probably for you youngsters, putting your phone in do not disturb mode or turning the thing completely off. So you're not distracted by every text or Snapchat or DM that slides into your phone. So, just put yourself in an environment where you can concentrate and you can focus, especially with the time limit. And then the next part is, this has been a funny topic, the test itself that I've kind of talked about with other educators for a number of years, and the questions themselves. And the wording can sometimes be a little confusing. So just want to make sure that you read the question real carefully. And depending on the format of the test, some of the test questions are true, false only. When we get up to the level 4 test, it's got some multiple choice. And then, of course, the open book has a number of multiple choice. Eliminating things off the bat that just aren't the right answer. But I'd say the thing with the great thing about technology and the tests is that the wording that's used in the test question is oftentimes the exact same wording in either the rule or in the description in the casebook. And I remember doing my first test, and the purpose of the open book test is to familiarize yourself with the rule book. Where are the rules? What section do you go to look up different rules? What's different about, section 4 versus section 6, right? Well, there's still a bunch of descriptions of penalties within those sections, but, how do you jump around? But the great thing about the app or just downloading the rule book as a PDF is now it's searchable. So now you can cut down on that time of flipping through the book and spending all this time. Is if you just isolate certain phrasing or certain terms in the question, you can type that in to your search bar, or you can type it into the search option on the rulebook app, and it's gonna significantly narrow down what you're looking for. And I know it's not up on the screen, but I went to I just Googled USA Hockey closed book test, and a whole bunch of different options popped up. The Arizona Hockey Referees Association has a practice test, and then they have the level 2, 3, and 4 closed book exams from 2015-16 and 2016-17, including the open book exam from 16-17, complete with an answer key. And you can look, you can just look these up right online. There's also for some of the youngsters that may be familiar with Quizlet, the Quizlet app that some of your teachers may use. People have made flashcards with using Quizlet just to help you study. But what you can do is, I'm looking at the 2016-17 level 4 closed book examination, and literally you can just read a question. So you can do like this. You can go in. The home team shoots the puck into the visiting goal, and it is not observed by the referee in the three official system. Play continues until the visiting team scores, and the referee stops play. The linesman reports the home team goal to the referee, and the referee agrees that the home team scored on the prior play. The proper sequence of events is to award the goal to the home team. The visiting goal is not counted, and reset the game clock and any penalty clocks to when the goal was scored. Okay, it's a lot happening in that. That's a true or false question. This is number 4 that I'm reading. And there's a lot happening in that question, right? But if, number one, just from experience, this tells me it's in the case book. Okay, this is not just like a simple, is it this or that? So it tells me it's in the case book. So what you could do is you could search through the case book for awarding goals or not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out certain key information or key systems. So not observed by the referee is probably your key phrase there. So if you open up your rulebook app or digital file on your computer of the rulebook and you simply type in "not observed by the referee," there's going to be a handful of penalties and goal situations, and there's probably only going to be 5 or 6 things you have to read through, and you're going to find this exact scenario that's going to tell you, what the right answer is and what the correct procedure is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'd like to point out what you said there also, Mason. The good part about it is, too, yes, you're going to have to read through 5 or 6 things. But you're only looking for the one answer, but you're going to absorb it at the same time. So I still, to this day, is a level 4, and been officiating for 21 years. I still pull out the actual physical rule book and go through it. That's just my thing every year. And I still like to do that. And there's still things every once in a while where I'm like, I don't remember that being written like that. So it's a good warm up for the beginning of the year, getting ready for your test.
No. I think it's a great warm up, and especially when I started working college, I really had to get like the number one rule for referee preparation is know the rule book, right? There's like every possible situation you can get into on the ice. There's no excuse for being like, well, I just don't know. I'm sorry. That's never gonna fly. Talking to any player, coach, off-ice official, on-ice official, supervisor, fan, it's never gonna fly. Just being like, well, I just didn't know what to do. So some people are awesome skaters. Some people, look like they're riding a railroad track, and it just like those are certain things that, maybe you can only improve your skating so much or only control so much. The rule book is one thing you can control all your knowledge on. So like when I first started working college, like I was like, all right, I got to learn this. And it's not just going over that, what are the differences between NCAA and USA Hockey cheat sheet? Like the rule book is structured completely differently too. So learning that, I felt like my brain was fried on the USA Hockey side. So, there's still things that like that you can do in college, you can't do in USA and vice versa. I'm glad that I'm glad that the year that they finally like consolidated 9 dots, I was like, oh, thank goodness. It was so great. So, but there's so many things that, yeah, absolutely. You want to read through the rule book and you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I always just, because if you're going back and it can be hard to go back and forth. And there's plenty of us that, might work a youth game in the morning and a college game at night. And then the next morning you work a youth game and you're bouncing between the rule books and crazy, situations are happening back and forth. And, you got to make sure that you know red from blue.
Yeah, it's very confusing. I mean, that's probably the toughest thing for any official is to work multiple sets of rules and keep them straight. And I've been to a couple of the district seminars, and they've had some great people that have, high-level referees that are teaching the classes, but they actually work under a different set of rules than the normal USA Hockey rules. So a lot of stuff they have to double-check on because it's like, oh, I haven't worked that in a long time. And it is very confusing. I mean, just working a basic college game can be, put your mind to the test.
I'd like to give a trick to all referees out there. There's a thing in the back of every rule book. It's called a penalty index. Okay? It tells you what you can call a minor, what you can call a 2 or a 5, what you can call a 2 and 10 in USA Hockey, what you can call 5 in a game. Okay? It's an index. All right? I think it's 6 sheets. All right? Take it into Kinko's. Shrink it down to the size of your riot pad. Have them laminate it, double-sided, put it in your riot pad. If you work multiple leagues, once you get to the rink, pull out the one that's the game that you're going to be refereeing in, whatever league it is, and just go over those real quick.
That's a great suggestion.
And then put them back in your riot pad, and now you have it. Now you've gone through it right before the game.
Yeah, pull it out before the game.
Not after.
Penalty. And then also, for those of you that don't know what Kinko's is, he's talking about FedEx Office.
FedEx Office. Thank you, Mason. I appreciate that. Just a suggestion out there. That's something that when I worked with multiple rule books and multiple weekends that I did, and then I would go one step further and I'd stick it in my back pocket just so it was a metaphor that I have the rule book in my back pocket.
Yeah, there's actually
part of my game.
I forget what the name of the company is. They're out of Canada, and they sell riot pads, and they sell some different like pads that are actually made for hockey, like for penalties. Like, if you're in a situation where you need to call a 2-minute here and a 5-minute here, and you got a scrum going, and you could just kind of check off. It's got the numbers and all that good stuff. But they actually have a little pre-made up sheet.
Sliding in.
So it's USA Hockey, and then they have one for Canada Hockey. And, comes right in the pad. It's a great idea, and it's a really useful tool, and highly recommended, guys. Speaking of that, when you're working these, on these tests, every year the questions don't change a ton. I highly recommend that you guys, when you take your open book test, you keep it from year to year, because they do recycle questions. So keeping that test, get a little box, put everything away from each year, and save your answers, because you're probably going to see that question again, whether you see it on the closed book test or again on the open book test. And not only that, it's a great prep tool if you're getting ready to take all your tests, is just to go back through all the questions that you've answered over the years and look at those. It's going to be very helpful.
And okay, so I got like two more. I know we're running up against time. I got like two more things. So for me, the searchability, because I'm very slow and meticulous about what I do, right? In terms of the test taking, and like the penalty situations are a good, that's something that like I look at them on paper, and I just like they look totally different on paper to me than up on a board. And I feel like, the first 5 years I reffed, I'd always get one of the penalty expiration things wrong, which is like the easiest thing in the world. Panthers just scored. Sorry. It's like the easy. It's 2-1. 41 seconds into the third period. Coach Q is fighting for their playoff lives. But looking at it in a game situation, it's very obvious, like who's first in, who's first out, what's happening, what's the on-ice numerical strength, and then translating it onto a sheet of paper. That's where it doesn't, I have to slow things down. So the searchability option is great to speed things up. But the thing I recommend is like always look up the answer. Okay. Even if you know the answer, and that goes back to like knowing where it is in the book, knowing what the rule reference is, and also just kind of double checking it and reading through the rule again. The first year that I decided to take the test, like with a group of referee buddies, I felt like I was slowing the whole train down because I wanted to do that. But we found like 3 or 4 questions, in the open book exam that we otherwise would have answered incorrectly, just because a couple of us were like, oh, I know that, but it was the junior rule that they were applying and not the USA Hockey rule, or it was the NCAA rule and not the USA Hockey rule. So, I would just look up every answer. I think I made reference last week on like, don't follow a certain person's example. I'm like just going through and answering all the questions. And I know he's probably listening today, and I don't want to throw him under the bus, but his initials are TJ Torba. And, he's just like flying through going, oh, I know all this, and just doing it without looking anything up. And then you get a nice, lovely email from USA Hockey that says you have one more attempt to take your test, or you can't officiate this year. And, and like, I know sometimes it's the ego or some officials like the challenge, where it's like, oh, I'm just going to try to do my open book as a closed book. And if that's how you want to roll, knowing that you have another opportunity, that's fine. But like my suggestion is, I think from like a learning standpoint, you're going to get more out of it if you look up every single rule. Like even if it's something really simple about like determining edge of the blue line, if you look that up, you're going to know like where it is in the rule book, and you're going to know like the reference and the exact wording. And then that helps with coaches' communication. Like, a lot of times, like when I communicate with coaches and they ask me questions, I'll literally quote the rule book, not just like my interpretation or my, like the way that I would phrase it. I'll just quote it. And I'm like, yeah, I could sound like a robot, but then there's absolutely no, it eliminates a lot of the gray area. And, it eliminates a lot of like the follow-up questions. And you can't put your foot in your mouth by, explaining it the wrong way because somebody's interpreting the way that you phrase it differently.
The real star of the show has appeared. Miss Frankie has arrived. Everybody knows Frankie. No, these are great suggestions. Brad, give us a tip. We're trying to keep this to like an hour each week now. I know we've run over a little bit because last week we had a lot of breaking news, and having Mason on the show, has been great. We really appreciate your being here, Mason. Those are awesome tips. Brad, do you have a tip before we go?
No. Mason pretty much covered exactly what I do. The only thing that I would say is on your closed book test, as you take it. As Mason pointed out, penalty expirations. If you're one of those people that likes to look at it on a scoreboard, take your pencil, draw yourself a scoreboard, write in the times, and you'll figure it out. That would be the only one that I would say. Yeah. And very, very long in the tooth mentor, Jack Razlowski, taught us that. And I think that's an excellent tip.
Yeah, that is a great tip. And I guess I might as well throw one out there. Which one am I going to throw out is the question. I got a couple of them up my sleeve here. Oh, here's one. With the open book test, print that test out, obviously. You can keep it around the house and go through it or wherever the case may be. But, something else that may work for a lot of you is to do this as a group where you take the test individually. You do all your 50 questions, but you print out one test and you send it to maybe 3 or 4 of your friends, and they take the same test. Now, the questions are all the same, guys, if you're taking the same level. So if you're taking a level 3 test, all 50 questions are the same. They are in different orders. So you will not be able to just go through there and go, oh, question 1 is this. But if everybody takes the same test, like you print out your test and give it to everybody else, and they all do that test, then they can go back and take the answers after you guys get together in a group. It's a nice way to go have a quick lunch or something with the guys and just talk about hockey. And we go through the test. And if we had the answer incorrect, then, we would go back to the book if 2 of us disagreed on an answer. Probably on 80% of the questions, we were all pretty much, yeah, that's what I have too. But there's those couple where you sit there and you debate a few things and you open the book and as a group you prepare your answer, and that will probably eliminate you having to take the test the second time, or at least the questions that you missed the second time, because you do have to get 45 out of 50 correct, I believe. Is that right, or is it 40 out of 50? I'm not sure.
It depends on your level. I don't want to be quoted on it because I'm not exactly sure.
And for the guys that are taking the level 2 test, when you go to take the level 2 closed book test, you need to know the basic manual. A lot of the questions for that come out of the basic manual. So if you've been a 1 and you're going for 2 this year, study that basic manual. That's probably the best tips that I can give. So with that being said, anything else you guys want to close on this week?
No, thank you for being here, Mason, again for the second week. I know we got interrupted.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and you've been a great guest. We'd love to have you back again soon. So I don't know who we're going to have next week, but we will come up with something special with all the stuff that's going down now. We'll try to be, as timely as we can on the issues here, and we'll see where we are with hockey. By the way, there are some petitions out there on Facebook. I saw some of them floating around. What's the name of the website or whatever, something choice or whatever, but there are a number of petitions that you can sign that will help, hopefully, people look at hockey, maybe change their mind and make a decision to lower the level from 3 down to 2, or better yet to 1, or let's just open up hockey, okay? So I guess we're going to leave you with that. Don't forget to subscribe, everybody. Again, we do this every Wednesday at noon. Thanks, guys, for joining us. We will see you again next week. On behalf of Lunch in the Ref Room,